Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Agents of AI. I am your host, Peter Stubbe, community founder for Capto. And since it has been a week or two since we've published a new episode of Agents of AI, a reminder that this program is sponsored and affiliated by Capto, but our main goal here is to feature thought leaders, AI enthusiasts, clients, but also just anybody who we feel is aligned with Capto's mission of uplifting the responsible use of AI and AI agents, primarily in finance departments, but use cases we hear aplenty in this program. And that's what you can expect from today's program and all of our past episodes. So the fun twist that we have, if you're listening for the first time, is you'll notice our guest here is anonymized with a fun avatar, and I will refer to him as the digital dog for the rest of the conversation. But then feel free to guess who it might be. We will reveal their identity at the end, and you can focus on their insights and, I guess, their adorable puppiness, too, in this case. But I'm going to hand things off to the digital dog to introduce themselves. Reminder, again, please don't reveal your name or company. We'll save that for the end. But go ahead, digital dog, a little bit more about yourself, maybe some hints so folks can guess who you might be.
Hi, thanks for that brief introduction there, Peter, and welcome to your listeners. So, if you're good with your accents, you'll probably hear that I've got that English British twang about me. Without revealing who I am, I work in Europe and I lead finance functions across a number of countries for a large technology distribution business. My background is in finance leadership, also in shared services and transformation, and building high-performing teams across multiple countries and cultures. Alongside my corporate role, I do spend some time speaking about leadership, storytelling, and in particular reference to this podcast, the future of finance in the age of AI. I have delivered 2 TEDx talks. I do work with professional finance bodies, of which I'm a qualified accountant, and I'm heavily involved in mentoring. It's one of my great passions, along with youth development initiatives. Outside of my work, I'm what I call a fundraising challenger. So I'd be someone doing marathons, cycling, swimming, and particularly I have a penchant for climbing mountains. I often use my lessons from the mountains and endurance to explain leadership resilience and decision making. And if I was to say my 5 minutes of fame came a number of years ago during the dramatic 7.8 magnitude earthquake up on Everest, where unfortunately a number of people perished, but thankfully I'm here today to tell the story. That's my introduction.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you paying close attention to Capto and our network and our attachment to the Bulgarian community too, that is the final hint that I'll reveal to the listeners at home, because Digital Dog is a very recognizable figure in the Bulgarian finance community. And that's why both he and I are smiling literal ear to ear here today in terms of having him as a guest. And we're really excited to have somebody with not only that finance pedigree, pun intended, but also the unique background. And also just thank you, Digital Dog, for all that you do in advance of just, what you do to put forth technology and AI within both the financial community, but also specifically Bulgaria as well. If I could lead that into the first question, what do you like most about working in your role? And I know that that's a very finite question for such a broad person with such broad experience and such broad interests, but specifically when it comes to the finance role, what do you enjoy most about it? Yeah.
Well, given my background isn't actually finance originally, I come to the table of finance with a background of sport. I was very fortunate to compete for my country in athletics many years ago, and music, left brain, right brain. Obviously, I didn't continue that professionally, so finance is the career I chose. I would probably say, looking back, there were 3 things, and looking forward, there were three areas of finance which I particularly like most. Firstly, I enjoy the fact that finance sits at the center of everything. And that isn't me being sort of snobbish about how important finance is, but whether it be strategy, operations, people, customers, technology, risk, they all converge in one place. I like to think of it as the Starship Enterprise. I'm not saying I'm Captain Kirk, for those people who are Trekkie fans, but being at that sort of center, overlooking and directing things and seeing it come through me. So the stereotype of finance is just usually about reporting the past. But often what I do in my talks is I talk about the modern finance person is really about helping shape the future. The best CFOs today are translators. They often take the complexity, and there is complex. Finance can be made complex, but trying to turn it into decisions that people can act upon. So the second point is more the empathetic side. It's more that human side. I genuinely enjoy developing people. One of the most rewarding parts of the leadership is watching someone grow from being technically strong into something more commercial, more influential and confident enough to challenge the decisions at senior level. And I touched upon it in my introduction. I'm a big fan of mentoring. I have got experience and skills that I love to pass down to people. And the final piece, I said at the beginning, my current role has me spending a lot of time traveling between countries, including Bulgaria, where I live. I love the international aspect. Working across countries teaches you a degree of humility very quickly. Different cultures. One of the countries where I'm a CFO is in Turkey. Very different to some of my other countries in Belgium and Netherlands, the West versus East versus in Europe. The approaches to problems differ. And that diversity of thinking makes better teams and ultimately actually makes me a better leader, because I've had to craft my response to actions and teams in a way that takes into account, it's like a soup bowl that's got different flavors in it. I'm having to accommodate all those different flavors in that soup bowl.
Great. Well, thank you, Digital Dog. And I just want to chime in saying that for those of you that been continuous listeners of Agents of AI, this is a common thread and something that even when we initially created the program, didn't really know what we were doing with it, to be honest. One of the themes that we knew we wanted to center in on was the uplifting of the financial role to something that isn't just numbers and dollars and cents and famously the office of no, but more so the office of how to. And I think more and more so as you see CFOs being elevated into CEO positions, and we see more and more CFOs and finance leaders like yourself, Digital Dog, embracing the storyteller role. I want to encourage our audience to continue to do the same and look to leaders like the Digital Dog, who will reveal himself at the end, as inspiration to continue on that pathway and continue to build the financial role into the place that it deserves within organizations. So thank you for those three reasons, Digital Dog. And if we can then talk something more so, I guess, as a tangent to that, what do you feel is something that's still underappreciated about the finance role, and something that we should continue to lift up with whether it's programs like ours or programs everywhere? What does the financial world need to get more credit for, I guess, would be the simple way to put it. Yeah.
No, it's a very relevant question today and in the coming years, and it has been for a few years now, and I touched upon it about that future version of a CFO. So the one thing I would say linked to that is the emotional and the communication side of finance leadership. We all know, whether it be the movies, whether it be books, even going back to Scrooge, Scrooge, a Dickensian Christmas character, all he was doing was counting his money in that curmudgeon sort of way. And often CFOs are seen as those people who just they've got their noses in spreadsheets. But in reality, a huge amount of the modern CFO and finance leader is around communication, is around influencing, storytelling, and building trust with your stakeholders. A finance leader might spend 1 hour discussing a cash flow, another helping a country leader through a difficult decision, and another, presenting to executives, and another coaching a team member who lacks confidence. They're all scenarios that I probably spend every week and every month of my job as an international cluster CFO.
Yeah.
And good finance leaders also carry a lot of responsibility quietly. During the uncertainty, people look to finance for calm and clarity. I'm sure that there are a number of listeners either in the past the present, or maybe they've got some changes that they're going to have to make. They're not always the nicest thing, but sometimes they should be for the benefit of the business and the people working at it. When those changes are taking place, people look up to the finance CFO and the tone matters. Your reactions matter. You're often helping an organization stay balanced during pressure. And the analogy I would give, and I say it's a comical one, if there's a bumpy plane trip, which I'm on a lot at the moment, I look to the air hostess. If the air hostess looks worried, I should be worried. So it's just that human side of finance is massively underestimated, and I think it will continue to grow.
Yeah, well, being the barometer for the organization, and then also being, I think this is where colleagues of finance departments can meet them halfway in understanding that they are not the voice of no, they're the voice of reason and how to sometimes, right? And I think that gets caught up with voices of no. But thank you very much, Digital Dog, for that. And if we can pivot now to the namesake of the program, and also what I would describe as kind of like our blockbuster question that we ask all of our guests. Digital Dog, can you talk about a AI and or automation use case that excites you, something that you may have recently put in production or read about? We love to just really truly hear from practitioners like yourself. Just a little bit of inspiration and guidance and advice of like where it could be, where to start or where to go. I'll let you decide how complex you want to take it, but would love to have one idea from you for your peers. Yeah.
Sure. As I said in the introduction, I've actually done some keynotes. I would not say I'm a technical expert on AI, but as I'm about to explain, in my view, you don't have to be a tech. When I drive an expensive car, when I drive a good car, I don't need to know every bit about how that car works. I obviously need to be able to drive it proficiently, but other people are helping build to make us use it. So before I dive in, if I just give you some summary points that are linked to what I'm about to say, in my view, the three positives of AI, we see operational efficiency. We see the ability to scale, and the speed at which we can scale, we can look at those added insights. But with every positive, there comes that caution, that blind confidence that says, it's got to be right. AI's created it. Well, no, AI is not infallible. And there's also the big thing, particularly around finance, is governance and accountability. All companies, including ours, have been hesitant to go too quickly into AI. And what I find is talking to people in my network, maybe the smaller the company, the easier it is to sort of dabble and sort of play around with it and just, test it. So I do have an example, and I've probably got a couple, so I'll just merge them in. I'm trying to explain it without going down a big rabbit hole. So in the early days of my time in Bulgaria, we were processing and continue to process probably more than 1 million invoices a month. That's a lot of invoices coming from the best part of 9 or 10 different countries. Now, a very tried and trusted area of finance is the whole area of accounts payable. We, at that time, had automation levels, and this is some would say more the crude or the early days of AI, but machine learning, and whatever way you dress up, it is part of the AI journey. We were automating around 15% of those invoices. So 85% of those invoices required a human touch. In the past year to year and a half, that's now matured and developed, and it's now over 90%. So yes, a number of people have been replaced by this machine learning, and anyone, all the finance professionals listening to this and non-professionals will know, you get them as PDFs, you get them as EDI feeds, you get them as all sorts of emails, but ultimately the AP confirmation ultimately is an invoice. The machine learning has allowed us, and what I always have told my team and continue to is, it frees up the ability, particularly in Bulgaria, where I see very educated individuals, to go on and do more advanced things. So that's that's one of my sort of key takeaways. But AP automation, the sign of a good automated organization is that you can process AP invoices in a very efficient way. But moving forward, and this is where I'm not saying we've got it, I've experienced it personally in the functions I manage across my countries at the moment, but it's certainly the direction we're going. A very practical example is the use of AI to try and trawl through the very large amounts of data. And I've got two specific examples where we are sort of touching the sides, and I know there are other organizations I've met, is we, like many companies, have to assess risk. When we give credit limits to customers, there's lots of analysis. You've got to pull sources, financial statements, run rate, collection trends and stuff. That often in the past has all been done manually. It then got introduced Excel macros, but using the latest AI technology, we foresee, and I foresee it in the network I talk to, that information being gathered far more quicker, so it allows people like myself and my senior analysts, or anyone who's analyzing the data, to spend more brain power analyzing the data rather than collecting it. This idea about let's not look at the past, let's look at the future. And linked to it, and it's very linked, is certainly when I've talked to other companies, I use the word heat map. When they look at a heat map of the amount of work that is done in the local business outside of the traditional accounting, debits and credits and closing the books, in the area of budgeting and forecasting, we've all heard about it. We can model on that, and AI can do some great modeling to allow us to get to a baseline that says, this is a strong baseline based on these assumptions. And then that allows us to make those forward-looking decisions. What business are we going after? What TAM, total available market, are we going after? What market shares are we going here? What pricing actions are we doing here? And we can have some really forward-looking actions. And that's leading me on to the ultimate goal, as I see it, for that forward-looking CFO, the one of the future, not the one behind looking at reporting, is to be that true business partner. And I have to reference a program or a phrase that KPMG in America came out with many years ago. It's probably 12, 13 years ago. They talked about, using an American analogy, offense versus defense. Yeah. Defense is the stuff you centralize, the stuff that can be repeatable, it's transactional, and often it's sent into a central location, whether it be a captive shared services or a BPO. What you've got on the offensive side is all that value-added stuff that we are supporting. We as finance leaders are trying to support the go-to-market business to help them make more money, to go after customers, to penetrate into a new market. So what I'm trying to say is that today, I think AI can dramatically accelerate that process. Instead of spending days creating reports, teams can spend more time asking better questions and ultimately providing feedback to the supporting functions. And as a final point there, so I've given you those examples, the machine learning, the analytic stuff, broad statement, and I've come to this conclusion a few years ago. AI should not replace the judgment, it should enhance the judgment. I often say the future belongs to finance leaders who combine technology with human skills. The idea of curiosity, storytelling, ethics, leadership, and critical thinking. Certainly in the last year, when I've been stood up there and I've been hosting either panels or delivering talks on AI, and again, I don't profess to being an expert, the clear things are AI, you can write this down, AI gives us speed, but humans still provide wisdom. And the tagline I like to always end up with in my presentations is, the future of finance leadership will be powered by AI, but led by people.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and such great examples. And I really enjoy examples that are pragmatic and simple. I think that this is what the AI world needs, and what the finance and AI world needs. The invoice processing one is one that just resonates very strongly with us. If this program is not meant to be an advertisement for Capto, but something that we do a lot for our clients. And it's something that I would say we talk about a lot, because finance departments shouldn't feel overwhelmed or embarrassed because they haven't made as much progress with AI and automation as they would like. And they're still doing these things, invoice processing, manually. As you take the digital dogs example, people, you start with 15%, and you layer on logic and then AI enabled exceptions that one day takes you to 90%. But that journey doesn't happen overnight, and we see this all the time. So I my words of encouragement to the finance department, but that's also going to lead me to the final question that we have here for the digital dog. What are some of the final words or motivation that you could leave with peers who especially feel like they aren't moving at the pace that they should be with AI? What are some of the words of wisdom and advice that you could give them? You've given plenty already, but maybe some concluding remarks.
Yeah, I mean, this is the ultimate question when I gather with peers in my network and also peers within my company. You know, I travel not only in Europe but also beyond the region of EMEA. Is, as a human being, often, and this is a very general statement, we often look sort of quite enviously at other companies and think, oh, in every aspect of what we do, but particularly AI, and you think, oh, they're probably doing it a lot more than us. They've been doing it for years. Honestly, I can tell you, I've always thought that until I then mixed with others talking about AI. And I think to myself, we're not top of the class, but we're certainly not in the bottom quartile. So never underestimate the stuff you're doing already is probably, you probably don't recognize it, but you're probably on that train journey. By the way, I use an analogy, the train has already left the station. If everyone thinks this AI is just going to come and go and it will be replaced by something else, AI is here to stay. So the specific answer to your question is, first point I would say is, don't wait until you feel ready. It's like, I want to run a marathon. Oh, but I want to lose the weight first before I run. Well, if you keep taking that attitude, 30 years down the line, you'll still be saying to your grandchildren, I'm going to run a marathon. Most people think they need to become AI experts before they start. You don't. You learn by experimenting. Second bit, start small. You know, use AI for meeting summaries, you know, drafting emails, analyzing data trends. You know, I don't use AI to replace what I do normally. I use it to supplement. The second thing is, you know, prompting is becoming a bit of a leadership skill, i.e. you can use AI to sort of prompt, not do your thinking for you, but to accentuate your thought processes. So the quality of your questions increasingly determines the quality of your output, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So curious people will thrive in the AI area. And the other thing I'd give is you know, we have a digital leadership here at my company, and we've just been visited. And it's quite poignant that I'm having this podcast today, and it was repeated in the town hall today. AI is not just a technology conversion; it's a mindset conversion. I mean, you can have the greatest car in the world, but you need to be able to drive it. So it's the same thing. If people just think this change is all about the technology, we've all lived through our lives where they get the latest bit of tech and it's sitting in the corner as an elephant and no one uses it. It's also a mindset. You've got to bring your mind to it as well. So I feel the people who succeed won't necessarily be the most technical. I'm not the most technical, but they'll be the people who stay adaptable, open-minded, and willing to continuously learn. Doesn't that reflect society in general? The speed at which we've had to change, and I'm picking up my phone here. Who knew 20, 30 years ago that we'd be making large transactions through that little box that sits in our hand? Whereas in the old days, and I sound like an old man, you'd have to go to the bank, you'd have to get in the queue, you'd have to do all that. So in answer to your question, I genuinely believe we're entering one of the most exciting periods for finance professionals in decades. AI is removing the low-value, repetitive work, as I've said in the AP example, and giving finance leaders the opportunity to become more strategic, more creative, and more human, i.e., the good ones, or the ones who really want to get on, focus on that offensive side of finance and move the defensive stuff, you know, that automation, you know, the batch pros, all that stuff that can be done in a central place at scale and at speed. And that's how I think a good organization, no matter what their size, how they can use AI to its benefit.
All right. Well, thank you, Digital Dog. You have shared so much, and we've been so gracious for having you join us. I think now is the time where we can excitedly reveal your true identity. If you want to just return to your settings, and then if you re-click your filter, it should automatically remove your dog persona, and we can introduce the true you. Yeah.
And this is the use of technology. And I can go to filter, did you say?
Correct. Yep. So same as you turned it on, just click again and it should turn off. It may take a moment or so, but there we are.
I've done
All
it.
right.
There I am. In fact,
The tradition.
my background is similar to the digital dog. So,
Yep.
for those of you who've not met me before, my name is Tony McMurray. I'm an Englishman, a Brit, who moved to Bulgaria in 2018 to oversee the shared service centre here of Ingram Micro Bulgaria. In the last 18 months to 2 years, I've shifted my role. I've moved back into the finance because here in the shared services, I did everything, both finance and go-to-market. I was formerly CFO at Ingram Micro UK, and I've held a number of finance roles. So my current role, I hinted, I touched upon it, I'm the CFO, the cluster CFO of Belgium, Netherlands, and Turkey. And I've worked at the company now. Last September, I celebrated 30 years. And as touched upon earlier in some of the questioning or introduction, alongside my corporate role here, I'm also passionate, as I said, about leadership and storytelling, and particularly youth development. I have done the 2 TED Talks. In Bulgaria, my first TED Talk has now gone above 250,000. And I do support a number of NGOs, non-profit organizations, one of which is connected to the British royal family, which is the Duke of Edinburgh International Award, which basically it readies the youth of the world, not only in Bulgaria, for life as an adult. I work for an American company, Ingram Micro. I'm also a board member of AmCham Bulgaria. And the final organization is called BEST. I'm actually part of the BEST organization, which is an organization trying to further, again, in Bulgaria, the speaking skills and debating skills, again, of the youth of Bulgaria. And for those of you looking to contact me, as I said, Tony McMurray, I can probably best be contacted via my LinkedIn. I also do have an Instagram account, which I've started using since I moved to Bulgaria. And I'm always willing to talk to people, whether you would like me to come and do a talk or any of the subjects we've talked about today. As you heard, I'm very passionate about them. And outside of work, if you want to talk about mountains, endurance challenges, or fundraising, I'm here to talk about those as well. So yeah, I do live, as everyone says to me, I do live life to the full.
Well, thank you, Tony. And I'll just leave it kind of short and simple with you, because what more could I say? It's been a long time that we've actually had you on our vision board of like a top guest that we would love to have a part of the program, kind of for all the reasons that you stated, in terms of just the alignment with building up the Bulgarian community, being a part of the modern finance role, and also too, just kind of living life to the fullest. I think we're all, those of us that follow you here at Capto are inspired by your pace. And I would encourage everybody else who is meeting Tony for the first time to follow along yourselves and try to keep up with him as we do as well, because it's quite difficult. Thank you very much, sir.
If I could leave one tagline for your listeners, a tagline that I always like to use: live the story you want to tell.